Round 5, Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski is official for UFC 245 in December. Dating back to his featherweight defense against Brian Ortega, this will mark Holloway's 4th title fight in 12 months. Ariel, could 4 championship fights in 1 year be too much for Holloway?
And it's also important to note that the majority of those fights have gone either the distance or into championship rounds, right? He went 4 rounds with Ortega, 5 rounds with Dustin Poirier, 5 rounds with Frankie Edgar. So these aren't quick fights. Now, if he would have returned, Chael, in October 243, the Australia card, I would have said, yeah, I think that's a little too soon. That's a little too much because that would have been just 2 months after his fight against Frankie Edgar. Yes, he didn't take a lot of damage in that fight, but it's still the training camp, the fight itself. It's a lot for a guy like that to take. He's fighting big fights against top contenders. Here's the thing, though. Max Holloway's still pretty young. And yes, I know he had the health scare, and that's always sort of in the back of our minds, but he's not taking an incredible amount of damage in these fights. He's still in his, mid to late-ish 20s, so it's not like he's, past his prime, so to speak. I'm okay with this. I'm at peace with this. I like a fighting champion. If it's a guy who's in like real wars and is getting beaten up and bloodied and cut up, yeah, I'd say maybe we should slow our roll a little bit, but I'm okay with this one. October would have made me feel a little uncomfortable. And I'll just say this, I know Alexander Volkanovski isn't a household name, but of those guys that he beat over the past 12 months, so I'm talking about Ortega and Edgar, of course he lost to Poirier, I think Volkanovski is going to give him his toughest fight. I would not sleep on Alexander the Great. I think he is very durable, very smart, very skilled as a fighter. I think he's going to give Max his toughest fight as champion at 145.
Yeah, and Ariel, as far as is it too much for Max and all of those rounds, a lot of this is an age issue. When I was Max's age in MMA, I was still having to fight in the tournaments that were around. Multiple guys in one evening. Now, the thought of being able to do that right now as at 40 years young, Ariel, I don't want anything to do with the tournament. But back then, it was no big deal. Body felt great. You go out with your friends afterwards. You get up in the morning, go to the hotel, or rather go to the airport and return. I wouldn't think twice about it. I think that Max is at the right age. I think that he is durable. I think his body does hold up well enough. And I also want to piggyback on what you said because Volkanovski will be Max's toughest fight. And Ariel, isn't it interesting why? Anytime you have somebody so great like Max, you will either tune in just to witness their greatness, a level that, say, a Michael Jordan got to, or you will tune in if the opponent brings a new weapon to the table that the great champion Max Holloway has never been confronted with before. And in this case, it is strength. I don't know of a world title fight where the storyline ever came down to how strong an opponent was. That's almost a silly term. It's about speed and the ins and the outs and the hooks and the kicks. No. This is about strength. Volkanovski used to weigh 211 pounds as a rugby player. He's the strongest fighter to ever be in this weight class. Jose Aldo, who isn't exactly weak, came out and said, I couldn't believe how strong the guy was. Strength is actually the storyline going in against Max, and maybe for the first time ever.
Yeah, that is a good point. I can't wait for that fight, by the way, and I agree. We don't need 3 titles on the line on that particular card.
We don't even deserve
them,
Ariel. We don't deserve 3.
What have we done? What have we done to deserve it? Can I ask you this, though? I
Yes.
know you like to say, oh, there's this misnomer out there that Max, has a tough time making weight. You've brought this up many a time. It's one of your favorite lines, but he's never actually missed weight. Okay, but what about this? We've never really received any sort of closure to what happened prior to that Ortega fight in July of last year, right? There he was on television slurring his words. There was some talk that he was like water poisoned or that the weight cut was bad or that he had a concussion. Does it make you feel, I think that's the problem here. I think we're even talking about this right now because of that particular incident. Not so much the Khabib fight where he missed weight, but he took that fight on 5 days' notice. It's because he was on camera slurring his words and we didn't find out why. Does it make you feel uncomfortable that we still haven't received any kind of closure as to why that happened?
It didn't until a second ago when you brought that up, and you're exactly right. I do remember that very well. I was out there for that live, and you said when he was on TV slurring words, he was actually doing an interview with our own Michael Bisping, and Michael called him on it. It was a 2-box. It was a studio shoot. They weren't in the same place together. And Michael said, Max, are you doing okay? At any rate, we were told about the water poisoning. I guess you're right. There was never a full reconciliation of that done. Now, the commissions and the organization and Max himself went out and did a number of tests, and they all came back and they said it's all cool in the gang. But I don't think you're without merit to bring that up, Ariel.
Yeah, I know that there is more to the story, but I don't know the rest of the story. Like, I've been told at some point we are going to address this, but they haven't addressed it yet. And so that's why I think people feel uncomfortable when they see Max come back very quickly. I think that's why a lot of fans who don't live in Australia said, maybe you shouldn't fight on that 243 card, even though it would be great. And that's why I think a lot of people were championing the idea of him moving up to 155 because we thought it was weight cut related. So now here we are. He's about to fight his 4th title fight in the span of 12 months, and he's about to fight again against a guy who's really tough, who's going to, I think, give him his toughest fight as champion.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports and analysis, download the ESPN app, and for live streaming and special content, subscribe to ESPN+.